Compliance 101 Review. What is OSHA? OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970. OSHA sets forth and enforces safety guidelines to assure safe working environments to prevent workers from injuries and/or death. There are various types of OSHA, being federal OSHA, which states that an employer must provide a safe workplace for their employees, while Cal OSHA, also known as California OSHA, states that an employer must provide a safe workplace for their employees and to the employees of others. OSHA requires that each employer maintains a safe and healthy workplace and complies with occupational and safety standards as required by law. We're going to review the various plans that we have as a requirement of OSHA. These plans include California Aerosol Transmissible Disease, also known as ATD, Emergency Preparedness, Exposure Control, Hazard Communication, Injury and Illness Prevention, and Radiation Safety Plan. All of the plans can be found in your compliance manual located at your specific site. I'd like to introduce our compliance team, myself, Kelly Garcia, as the Chief Compliance Officer, and Kathy Joard, who is our Compliance Specialist. Additionally, we have field compliance team members, such as practice managers and patient care leaders. Truthfully, all team members are responsible to maintain a safe working environment. Together, we will continue to create a culture of compliance. So, when does compliance training begin? Well, oftentimes during new hire orientation, new team members are required to take the following courses via our Dental Regulatory Compliance Portal. These courses include HIPAA, OSHA, Infection Control, and Radiation Safety. Additionally, we ask that our team members review the compliance manual. These must be completed within the first 10 days on the job, some of which will be completed on day 1. Let's talk a little bit about ATD. The goal of ATD is to protect employees and the general public from infectious diseases through regular screening processes. This typically happens at the beginning of the appointment and can be either verbal or written. Oftentimes, this is when an assistant seats the patient and reviews the patient's medical history. It's important to know that dental procedures are not performed on patients that have identified as having or suspected to have had an active ATD. If a patient has had an ATD in the past, we require a written release from a physician indicating the ATD is no longer active prior to performing or providing any dental services. Some examples of ATDs include tuberculosis, meningitis, and measles. Additionally, we might reschedule non-urgent appointments until the patient is well if the patient identifies as having any one of the following: fever, active flu, strep throat, herpes simplex 1, also known as cold sores, an unexplainable cough that lasts more than 3 weeks, hand, foot, mouth disease, and pink eye. Emergency preparedness. There are various emergency action plans that are location specific, meaning each location will have their very specific evacuation routes, meeting places, and service locations signature to that particular practice. Our emergency preparedness plan includes spills as it relates to chemical or bloodborne pathogen, fires, as well as evacuations. An important piece of emergency preparedness are our code words. You can see here we use various code words for specific issues. For example, code blue would be heart rate or respiration stops. Code red would indicate a fire. Code orange is a hazardous spill. Code gray would indicate a combative person. And rapid response team would indicate that the doctor is needed chairside immediately. In the event that your patient is experiencing an emergency or a team member is experiencing an emergency and you witness the emergency, we ask that you stay with the patient or team member and utilize your resources to request help. That might be utilizing your walkie to call out the specific code word, or maybe asking another team member to announce it for you. Once the emergency is over, we would announce a code clear. Chemical or bloodborne pathogen spill. This could be communicated either verbally, via email, or maybe there's a sign that's posted. Some of these type of spills require possible evacuations. Maybe it's a partial evacuation specific to an area, such as maybe an operatory was having an issue. We needed to go ahead and note that we couldn't use that operatory, or put a sign there indicating maybe it's under construction. Or maybe there's a full evacuation that's required because there's a specific gas leak. It's important that when an evacuation is in need, communication is made to the following if applicable. If this is an urgent matter, you might need to reach out to 911 or department. It's important that you also reach out to your area manager and our customer care team or center, which is also known as C3. These are the folks that take the bulk of our inbound calls, and we want to make sure to alert any patients that might be arriving to the practice. We have, in terms of fire safety, we have portable fire extinguishers on site that are ABC noted. Please note that we do not require that our employees extinguish a fire. In the event that you decide to go ahead and extinguish a fire, that is completely voluntary. Upon the fire alarm sound, we ask that all employees and guests evacuate the workplace immediately and meet at the designated meeting area, at which time there will be a roll call. As I mentioned earlier, each location has a designated meeting area, and it's really important that we remain cool, calm, and collective when we're evacuating. Oftentimes, you will notice that an evacuation or mock evacuation will take place throughout the year, and this is in preparation in the event that there was an emergency. We all know what to do. The main thing is to breathe, focus on the goal, and communicate effectively. Please note that if you are with a patient, you're responsible to guide the patient and or family to the meeting location. There will be 1 to 2 people in each practice that is identified as the safety officer of the location and will guide you to the destination. We do ask that you remain at the destination as roll call will be taken. And of course, communication to emergency services if appropriate, and to your area manager or customer care center if possible. In the event that there is an issue, the area manager will assist with distribution of any patients that are requiring emergency treatment. They will confirm that customer care center has been notified, and if the staff needs to be assigned to another location, the area manager will assist with that as well, and communicate to the Senior Vice President of Practice Operations and executive team members as needed. If you are unable to enter back into the building after 2 hours, we do ask that an area manager identify if a sister practice is in need of team members. or otherwise the area manager may decide to dismiss the staff or team members for the day. Exposure control. The exposure control plan is meant to provide a standard in prevention of exposure to blood or other potentially infectious materials. It's important that we follow the following: universal precautions, utilize engineering practice controls, use our personal protective equipment, and evaluation of incidents. And that would mean post-exposure follow-up, and that we maintain a SHARPS injury log. Universal precautions is the approach that we would treat all team members or patients as if they had an infectious disease. That would include other potentially infectious material, blood, saliva, and joint fluid. We are to also follow engineering controls and work practice controls. Here are some examples of both. Personal protective equipment is used to prevent exposure to blood and other potentially infectious materials. We have disposable products available such as gloves, masks, lab coats, and booties. And we have some reusable items as well, such as lab coats, goggles, and caps. It's important that you follow the guideline posted when putting on your PPEs. Please remember that you should have a lab coat or a gown that covers from the torso to the neck and arms to the end of the wrists, that you should wear masks appropriately, you should have eye or face protection, and utilize gloves accordingly. Here are some examples of reusable PPEs and how you should care for them. Please take a moment to review. It's always important to remember that OSHA is not a suggestion, but it is in fact a requirement. The intent of the Hazard Communication Plan program is to communicate to the employees hazardous chemicals and the risks associated with those chemicals and how to protect themselves. This includes labeling, proper storage, potential of risk, and safety data sheets, which include proper updated procedures. Safety data sheets have been updated to include 16 various sections, and they range from the identification of the product all the way through the stability and reactivity, as well as other information. Safety data sheets are available in each practice via your compliance safety data sheet binder and or your portal to electronic safety data sheets. It's important that each team member have a good understanding of where the information is kept and how to retrieve it in the event that a parent or guardian requests information. Here's an example of updated hazard communications standard pictogram. Please make yourself familiar with the various symbols and their risks. This information will be posted in each practice. Any products that are removed from their original container and placed into a secondary container require a secondary label. Here's an example of a secondary label that is required for such instances. It's important that these labels are legible at all times and that they are on the product themselves, so the container itself and not just the lid. The Injury and Illness Prevention Plan is designed to ensure a safe working place. It includes actions on steps to take when an injury occurs, for example, the who, what, when, where, and how, frequency of safety meetings, site visits and corrective actions, and the Safety Meeting Committee. Safety Committee actually the meetings take place on a quarterly basis, and we evaluate past incidences, current safety procedures, and safety suggestions. Here's an example of the journey of an injury. Let's say you were on the job and an injury occurs. First, you must assess the situation and make sure that it's an appropriate time for you to clean the area and step away from your patient if need be. And at the appropriate time, go ahead and notify your practice manager or patient care leader. This must be completed within 24 hours of the incident, at which time they will first and foremost make sure that you are stable and then provide you with the appropriate forms to complete while offering you medical attention to address the injury. All of the completed forms are emailed to which includes compliance talent and our area managers. And if you choose to accept medical attention, you'll be instructed to go to a specific facility that we are contracted with through our workman's comp insurance, and all follow-up will be maintained and addressed by the treating physician. As I mentioned earlier, there are various forms that will need to be completed based on the type of injury. Your practice manager and or patient care leader can guide you through the required forms. Radiation Safety Plan. For all team members that are exposing X-rays, it's important that they have a good understanding and an overview of our radiation safety plan. Please make sure that when you're exposing X-rays that you change the settings accordingly, and that the actual tube head should be no more than 1 inch away from the target, so as close to the cheek as possible. Dosimeter badges are optional for clinical team members, and there is an actual request for a dosimeter badge form that needs to be completed. We do monitor each location in terms of with the dosimeter badges, and we maintain the report according to the specific guidelines. Please follow the instruction of your area manager when making a request for a dosimeter badge. Employees who request a badge are required to wear them accordingly. Employees are responsible for the cost and replacement of badges due to damage, loss, and theft. So back to the training. All new hires must review the compliance plans and complete the dental regulatory compliance courses within 10 days of their employment. This information is often included in the training syllabus. All compliance plans are stored in each practice in your compliance binder. Each office has a different location to which they store the information, but they are all consistently kept in either the doctor's office, the lab, or the practice manager's office. Compliance manuals and plans are available to any and all team members to view at your leisure, and please make sure you have a good understanding of the contents. All team members should be very familiar with the plans, where they're stored, in the event that they are asked to retrieve them at any given time. So what happens if there is an OSHA or a HIPAA complaint? First, we would ask that the practice manager address the concern at the practice level. In the event that they are unable to address the practice concern, we would then escalate the issue to the area manager. The area manager will engage the vice president of practice operations or the chief compliance officer as necessary. It's extremely important that we document the information in the patient's chart via an office journal, or perhaps creating patient flags or pop-ups as appropriate. When in doubt, please don't hesitate to reach out to your direct manager or to myself, the Chief Compliance Officer. We're happy to address any questions. So what can you expect next? Our compliance specialist, Kathy Jo, will be visiting the practices periodically, doing what we call site visits. These site visits help us to make sure that we continue to maintain compliance throughout the organization. If there are any challenges or corrections identified during the site visit, that information will be communicated, as well as the correction timeline. For those team members that are in leadership roles, we would ask that you complete a US DOT training, which is related to the transportation of hazardous materials and the packaging of those materials through our Stericycle portal. You can expect Kathy Jo will send you some information on how to access the portal and guide you through the steps to complete the course. Please remember that safety and compliance is everyone's responsibility, and safety doesn't happen by accident. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoyed this presentation. Should you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to email your general questions to compliance@kidscaredental.com. Thank you.